Let me know when you guys are all ready.
Good. Good.
Everybody? Okay, this press conference is being called to discuss three death investigations here in Cambria County. And myself and the district attorney are going to review two of them, and then we're going to bring in other officials for the last one. The first case is Michael Thays, 40 years of age. His skull was found on May 16th of this year in the Little Conemaugh River in Conemaugh Township, Cambria County. He was positively identified through x-rays and anti-mortem images that were completed at Mercyhurst by a forensic anthropologist. He had been missing since January of 2023. The anthropology report confirmed that there were no signs of trauma to the skull. Therefore, the cause and manner of his death is going to be listed as undetermined. Yesterday, we extracted teeth and also took bone samples, which will be held indefinitely for future DNA if more bones are located. And again, the skull will be released to the funeral home later this afternoon. Is there any questions for me on that case?
If you do find the other remains, could that change the rolling of the manner of death?
Yes. Yes, if more remains are located, found, due through anthropology testing, we find out that there's something different that, or a cause of death can be determined through those findings, then sure, the case can be reopened and a cause and manner of death can be listed then.
Talk a little bit on in cases like this, you're limited with what you have to work with, aren't you?
We were very limited on what we had to work with as far as anthropology testing. We just basically had a skull to work with. But again, this, even though it's frustrating on my level in determining the cause and manner of death, it's very uplifting that the skull was located and it gives the family closure. It lets them proceed with some type of service.
Did the family say he frequented that area?
That I'm not going to get into those specifics with the police investigation. Maybe the DA can elaborate. Anything else for me? Okay.
So relative to the location of Mr. Thays' skull in the Little Conemaugh, obviously law enforcement continues to consider it to be highly suspicious. It is an ongoing active investigation. Multiple agencies are cooperating in that. County detectives are the lead on that. Anyone with any information can call 814-472-1680 and select the option for the detectives, which I believe is option 1. That's the DA's office general phone number. Not going to get into too many details about the investigation. Obviously, we want to protect the integrity of it. However, I will say we have had lots of cooperation from a lot of different entities. Norfolk Southern actually deserves some thanks. They shut down the main line multiple times for us so that officers and law enforcement could safely search the area where the skull was found. We have had cadaver dogs in numerous locations searching for further remains. Obviously, we would like to locate as much of the remains as possible so that perhaps the coroner's office then can take that information and make a more in-depth determination. Where the skull was found, obviously, we had some high water events earlier in the year, so that is complicating the search area a little bit. It's actually pretty broad that we're searching, conducting interviews, doing things like that. It is our hope that we'll be able to ultimately determine what exactly happened to Mr. Thays. It is a suspicious death, obviously, and we're treating it as a serious investigation.
We good?
Okay?
Okay, the second case is Gregory Roan, 36 years of age. His remains were found June 29th of this year in a residence off of Adams Street in the city of Johnstown. His remains were found wrapped in a tarp. It was placed above a second floor ceiling. He was positively identified through dental records. He had been missing since December of 2023. The case was a suspected, a possibility of a suspected overdose, a forensic autopsy, and a forensic anthropology testing was completed, which did not reveal any signs of trauma. We were able to send out a few samples of some tissue for toxicology, and due to the severity of decomposition, we were unable to quantitate any levels of drugs found in his system. There was fentanyl, which was positive, but again, we weren't able to actually get the level of fentanyl to determine if it was lethal or not because of the severity of the decomposition. Therefore, the cause and manner of his passing is being ruled undetermined at this point in time. And again, this is still an ongoing investigation by the district attorney and the Johnstown Police. Is there any questions on that specific case?
Do you expect more results back?
No. No.
Is it
All the
frustrating to
testing, it is, it's very frustrating when, I'm trying to get a cause of death. And this doesn't happen frequently. I take it very personal. But again, it's what the circumstances are. And, fortunately, we were able to positively identify him, again, through dental records. But again, due to the severity of decomp, just unable to quantitate the level of fentanyl that was found in his system.
Being the way the body was found, could there have been trauma that just wouldn't show up, being the way the body was?
It's, the death, and I'm sure the DA will elaborate on this, it's still being classified as highly suspicious. Obviously he didn't wrap himself in this tarp. So, there's definitely a suspicious circumstance, about the surrounding manner of his death. But again, through anthropology testing and a forensic autopsy examination, that was clean. No trauma noted. And I was hopeful that we would get a cause of death in the toxicology. But, again, unfortunately, we were unable to at this point in time. But again, the case is still being investigated, and I'm sure Craig will elaborate on that. Is there any more questions from me? Yes, sir.
Could you just confirm the spelling of Rohn's last name?
Rohn.
Do you see anything that could change your ruling of the cause of death?
Yes. Again, if, through the law enforcement investigation, the district attorneys that are working on the case, through their investigation, if they present findings that are substantial, obviously, yes, the cause and manner of death could be changed. Any questions before? Right. Okay, thank you.
As Coroner Lee's indicated, obviously, under the circumstances of where the body was located, how it was presented, is obviously very suspicious. Following up a little bit on what Coroner Lee's had to say, obviously, the coroner's office and law enforcement work very closely together when it comes to issues of cause and manner of death. Obviously, Jeff's office makes an independent evaluation and makes those determinations on their own. But obviously, law enforcement has a very large interest in those determinations. So we are able to share information between offices, and we do really from the word go anytime a body is located. In this case, is no different than that. We're considering it highly suspicious. It is being actively investigated. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Johnstown Police Department. Anyone with any type of information would be greatly appreciated. Again, the way the body presented itself, clearly, we have a lot of questions that we would love to be able to answer for the family and for the community. No different than the coroner's office. The evidence takes us where it takes us, and when you get evidence, you run with it. And this case is no different and will be no different, and it will be taken very, very seriously until we get some answers.
If it was just an overdose, there are laws out there that could have protected people around if they panicked.
Sure.
In that situation.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. There are certain offenses that people can't be charged with if they report an overdose. And they stay on scene, they give their real name, they stay on scene. There are immunity laws that cover possession, certain other things. It doesn't cover everything, and it wouldn't cover abuse of a corpse or anything like that. Those laws exist ostensibly so that medical attention can get to overdose individuals, right? In this case, there was no report that came in. Obviously, the body was discovered well decomposed, and obviously, that's suspicious.
All right, at this point, with the information you do know, I mean, do you consider this a primarily abusive corpse case, or do you feel like you don't know enough to know for sure what happened to this individual?
Yeah, at this point, I would say we don't know enough to really know ultimately what type of case this is. It could be as simple as an abusive corpse case, It could be obviously a lot more serious than that. With the information that we have some thoughts, we have some working theories. Obviously, we're not going to go into those publicly to protect the integrity of the investigation. But, yeah, we'd like to know a little more, to be perfectly frank.
Are you able to say if law enforcement knows who Rohn would have been around around when he died?
I'm not going to go into specifics about who may or may not have been around him at that time.
Both of these cases, missing for a while, nice though to give the family some.
Yeah, it's nice. I assume any family member that has a missing loved one would love to know. Oh, the first issue is finding them, right? And I believe they get a certain level of closure from that. Then next comes the larger question of how and why. We would love to give all these families those answers and give the community those answers, frankly. And if somebody committed a crime causing the death, obviously we want to prosecute that. law enforcement, the DA's office, everyone, we would love nothing more. And give the ultimate, as much closure as we can give a family. It's hard to think that they get a whole lot of closure without those answers. Nothing else on that? Okay. You give us just one moment.
Okay, the next case we're going to talk about is Jilly Tadero, 46 years of age. She had been missing since December of 2020. Her remains were found on June 7th. A forensic examination and a anthropology testing was completed at Mercyhurst University by forensic anthropologist Dennis Dirkmatt, which confirmed a broken hyoid bone that was fractured in 2 separate places. She also sustained a nasal fracture and a maxilla fracture. These fractures, through anthropology testing, was confirmed to be perimortem, which is at or near the time of death. Therefore, her manner of death, I rolled a homicide. And again, we had the broken hyoid bone confirmed relatively quickly, enough for me to make that ruling on a homicide. But again, through further anthropology testing that was completed. And she was positively identified through body imaging. Is there any questions for me regarding this case?
The anthropology test, is it nice to have that, I mean, the previous 2 cases you just talked about, to have that tool?
All 3 of these cases that we talked about today, you take all 3 of these, and all 3 were positively identified in a very short period of time, which again helps the Police Detective Bureau and the District Attorney's Office to start their investigation. We just can't assume. We have to be 100% accurate. And to have the anthropology unit come in, the cadaver dog brought in is paramount. Speaks volumes when we're conducting these complex death investigations. And as you hear Greg and I say all the time, we only have one opportunity to get it right. And all 3 of these cases, there was a lot of time and effort on all the investigators in all the different agencies to make sure that we got it right. And it's my job to speak for these people. And if their rights were violated in any way, shape, or form, Greg's going to see that justice gets served.
Jeff, third injury again that you identified?
Maxilla bone, which is it's Maxilla, and that is a bone in the front occipital area of the nose.
In common terms, would you say she was strangled and
The cause of death I'm listing as suspected strangulation due to homicidal violence. And again, the manner of death is being ruled a homicide. You know, the hyoid bone is a very well protected bone in the back of the throat. And normally we only see these bones fractured due to hangings and strangulation, or massive blunt force trauma, massive. Any questions for me before I turn it over to Greg?
You can talk a little bit about, through the course of the investigation, how were the experts able to determine, that these injuries happened?
Perimortem,
Yeah.
at or near the time of death,
Yeah.
through the types of fractures and what those fractures revealed upon their imaging and examinations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Before starting to get into some of this, just as a little bit of a reminder, there are, frankly, lots of things we would like to say. Ethically, there are a lot of things we can't comment on. Would refer you to the criminal complaint that was filed that we'll get into in a moment. And also, at the end of the day, we want to give Jilly the justice that she deserves. So we are going to be, as much as possible, very careful with what we say here today. I can confirm that with Coroner Lee's ruling in the investigation that charges were filed just really about an hour and a half ago, against Brian Giles, count of homicide and a count of aggravated assault for the death of Jilly Todaro. From the moment that she went missing, based on information that we had, we believed for quite a while that this was a homicide. Obviously, the case got much better whenever she was recovered. As sad as a day as that was, it was also the beginning of the opportunity to really move forward in getting her justice. We had considered filing this some time ago. I know there's probably lots of questions about that. Understand you can proceed with a homicide without a body. That's just something additional that's a little harder to prove. In order to convict someone of homicide, obviously first you have to prove that there was a homicide. You can do that without a body. We have been asked a lot of questions about that. It's a lot more difficult, frankly. And in this situation, we were able to file charges on a separate matter against Mr. Giles that ensured he wasn't out in the community and gave us time to be able to complete this investigation, which is still ongoing. Investigations don't stop because charges have been filed. He was arraigned by Magistrate Brian Subich about 20 minutes ago. There is a preliminary hearing scheduled for August 28th. We certainly expect that to be moved. We don't expect that to happen that day. He is still lodged in the Cambria County Prison. He had not yet been transferred to state prison to begin serving his life sentence for the death of Nancy Giles. Behind me are the two affiants in the case, Detective Sergeant Corey Adams and Detective Brad Christ. They have worked this case for a very long time, and standing to my left is one of the prosecutors that will be on the case, Jessica Arndt. Her and Warren Crilly and myself in the DA's office have spent a lot of time on this case, and Mr. Crilly and Ms. Arndt will be the two assigned to prosecute this case as they prosecuted the prior case with Mr. Giles. Questions?
I know we're kind of a sort of day one here, but and doesn't come until later. But at this point, are you planning to seek the death penalty?
So the question, if you couldn't hear it, was is the Commonwealth seeking the death penalty? The Commonwealth has until formal arraignment to make that determination and to provide that notice to a defendant. At this point, we have not made a decision on that. There are lots of factors that go into that, lots of considerations that go into that, and we are going to very carefully consider that. That is certainly something that we are discussing internally. We've been discussing, and I expect we will continue to discuss until that decision is made. And then that is not a decision that anyone involved, be it law enforcement, prosecutors, that's not a decision we're going to certainly take lightly.
His previous conviction, a lot of the evidence was his stories. He kept changing his story. Reading the criminal complaint seems to be mirrored in that.
So I ethically can't go into specifics or even whether or not statements were made by defendants, so I unfortunately cannot answer that question. I would refer you to the criminal complaint for certain details.
Are you able to discuss in the complaint that it talks about him telling you where the body was?
Ethically, I can't answer that question. I can say, though, and I know we said this at the prior press conference, the manner in which we were able to locate her body made this case better. When we made the decision a while ago to continue the investigation and to not charge the death of Jilly, but play out the Nancy Giles case, sometimes things happen for a reason, and this case got better as a result of the manner in which we found the body. And it also allowed us to have a very specific piece of information that allowed us to assemble a team of professionals to exhume the body. That is something that nobody in law enforcement is trained to do, and I don't believe anyone in Jeff's office is really trained to do. That is such an unbelievably specific, special set of skills. And the fact that we have Mercyhurst, really just 3 hours away, 3.5 hours away, that can come in and do that, the value of that is beyond measure. You heard Coroner Lees talk about the hyoid bone. That tells us a lot. And when you get into the science of forensic anthropology and all that stuff, it's really fascinating stuff. And because it was able to be exhumed without having been disturbed by anyone that's untrained in doing that, it makes our case and the investigation better. So we know there were a lot of people, and frankly, I mean, we considered this a homicide. When Jilly went missing, unfortunately not too long after, it became pretty apparent to us that she probably was not alive any longer. And I'm not going to get into the details quite of why we believe that. But we were fortunate enough to be able to get Brian off the streets through a different case, to be able to protect the community, to give us the time to move forward and to complete what has been an exhaustive investigation, to be honest with you. Again, it's still ongoing. There's still a few things that need to be done. Again, these cases don't stop just because charges are filed. We still have some work to do, and we will do it, and we will seek justice for Jilly. She deserves it. The community deserves it.
You're able to talk about, but in the complaint, it states that he said to somebody that he has 3 bodies on somewhere. Do you suspect there could be a third?
I can say at this point, we don't have any information that there's anyone else. No one has reached out to us from any other areas asking about anything. I can say that. So at this point, that could just be an odd form of bragging, perhaps.
Were you considering, if you didn't discover the body, were you still considering filing those charges of homicide against him, even without it? You mentioned how hard it would have been.
Yes, that was absolutely something that we had been considering for quite some time, really, whether or not we would file this without recovering Jilly. Again, recovering her obviously made that aspect of the case easier, right? I mean, it's in Jeff's ruling, obviously, that's step one. Again, in the manner in which we got that information of where to find her absolutely made our case stronger, better.
What's it mean to, you were able to give Nancy's family justice, to have the same team to move forward to hopefully give Jilly?
Yeah. The reality is we deal with really, really sad situations, right? No one deserves to be treated the way Jilly was treated. Nobody. And, you know, our job is to get justice, which hopefully gives closure to the family. You know, speaking of Nancy's family, they're really strong. They were really gracious. They had nothing but the absolute nicest things to say about the investigators, about the prosecution team, and those compliments are all deserved. But when you lay down at night and you think about it, it's really sad that we even have that closure to give. Really sad. You know, and Jilly's no different, and we hope to give her family the same type of closure. You know, the initial closure of her being found. And frankly, that gave a lot of us some closure too, because as we said before, we knew Jilly. She had a very good relationship with a county detective in particular. And I think we said before she had a cell phone number and was able to call. We all knew Jilly in some way, shape, or form.
This could be for you or for detectives with JPD, but at the time that Jilly was reported disappearing in December 2020, Brian had not been charged with Nancy's death yet for about a year and a half after that. So what was it like as those two cases were kind of overlapping?
Sure. I mean, obviously, you only get one chance to get it right, and we have to get it right. And when you consider the types of charges we're talking about, it's paramount that we do it right. Sometimes that takes a little bit of patience on everyone. I can say, you know, Nancy's case, obviously, we got a phenomenal outcome. We got the outcome that we wanted, and we got it, and the jury wasn't out very long, right? Which I think speaks volumes to the way the case was investigated and then the way the case was presented. We got it right. And at the end of the day, that is very, very important. And based on the timeline of the investigation in Nancy's case, that case also got a little better in like 2020, 2021. It got a little better and got us to a more comfortable spot where we felt it was the appropriate time to move forward.
You're still actively looking and hoping for witnesses that might have seen them together leading up to her disappearance?
Absolutely. And anyone, again, since the investigation is not done, and frankly, the investigation is not over until the jury gets the case. If anyone has any information relative to having seen Jilly and Brian together around the time she went missing, we'd love to hear from you. Love to get a statement. And it may just reiterate something that we know. It may give us something that we don't know. You know, the evidence takes us where it takes us. I can't say the last, and this is part of the complaint, the last time that we are aware that we have Jilly on video, she was with Brian, and the last time that anyone's reported they've heard her voice, she was also with Brian.
What about the three cases in general that you had here? Three missing people, all found in relative short time period around each other. Like how, I won't say unique, but how it happened to happen in a career of a coroner, police, and attorney's office.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't know any of us really have thought of it in that manner. Yeah, I mean, you have three missing people found within really a matter of 3 months. It's been busy, you know, and it's when you do this type of work, be it the coroner's office, be it police, be it prosecutors, you really have a 24/7, 365 job. You never know when your phone's going to ring. You never know when you're going to get out of bed and leave and not get home for 36 or 48 hours, which has happened to every one of us standing up here. Honestly, and I would say probably the reason why I don't think any of us have thought of all the cases, how unique it is, because it is unique to have three of these in a small community back to back to back, is because we're just so focused on doing the investigations and getting the justice for people that deserve it. That's really our focus. Sometimes we could use a little more sleep. I think that probably goes without being said. But at the end of the day, again, we have all signed up for 24/7, 365 jobs, and we owe it to the community to do that.
Did you happen to get like any tips about Giles' behavior from either Jilly or someone close to Jilly around there?
So, yeah, public record, there were charges that were pending against Brian relative to interactions between him and Jilly. So, yeah, I mean, they did not have the best relationship, to put it perhaps mildly.
According to the complaint, when he revealed where he knew where Jilly's body was, the timing, do you believe he had a motive as to why he would do that at that time of just being found guilty of Nancy's murder?
So, again, ethically, I can't confirm whether or not that was said, and I can say, in general terms, I don't think any of us dare to get into his mind.
After sentencing and his outburst in court, do you expect more of that going forward?
That's a question I thought we might get. I mean, I certainly hope not. Obviously, the courtroom is a place of decorum, is a place that deserves respect. And it's never a good thing when someone violates that decorum. Obviously, at his sentencing with Nancy, that occurred, which is really a shame. If anything, it detracts from what we were there for, and that was justice for Nancy, not to deal with outbursts. Certainly, I hope that Jilly gets decorum and gets what she deserves, which is a proceeding that's conducted properly and fairly, and hopefully the Commonwealth gets the result that we believe to be just.
After that, on his way out, he told our cameras that he didn't do it, it was somebody else. Do you expect him to carry on and take this almost to trial again?
I expect there to be a trial in this case. I don't think any of us expect anything differently. Yeah, we expect this to be a trial, and we look forward to it.
What does it mean to have the same team going forward, too, to know the past trial history and everything?
Absolutely. There's some interplay between the cases that obviously Attorney Arnn and Attorney Crilly know all of them. Attorney, gave you an upgrade. Detective Sergeant Adams and Detective Christ know both those cases inside and out, and how they may interplay and how they may not. We can glean information from Nancy's case that we believe will help us in Jilly's case. Obviously not going to get into the specifics of that because that's a bit of a tactical trial type decision that obviously we want to keep close to the vest. We have talked and thought an awful lot about this. Today is somewhat relieving to get these filed, to be honest. Bittersweet, certainly. Again, it's sad that we even have this to be talking about. So,
Do you have any evidence to believe that maybe Jilly knew about Nancy and maybe that's why
well,
she was murdered?
yeah, we don't have any specific evidence that supports that Jilly had any idea that Brian had killed Nancy. Certainly the rumors around town were that, even at that point in time, I believe. But rumors only go so far, right? We deal with with evidence and facts. You know, rumors sometimes can lead us to evidence, but we can't rely on rumors. Yeah. I wish Jilly had known, honestly. I don't think we'd be here today. Sure. Detective Sergeant Corey Adams.
Seldom it's often seldom that a police department will handle something by themselves from start to finish. We're fortunate enough at the Johnstown Police Department to have our own detective bureau, but we also work very closely with some of the surrounding agencies, such as the District Attorney's Office, the Coroner's Office, Dr. Dirkmatt and his team from Mercyhurst, the county detectives in particular in this case. County Detective Leah DeMarco was crucial in all of these in this case in particular. So I just want to give thanks where thanks is due. We always bounce ideas off of one another. We're always working with one another, and the community should be thankful enough that we have that kind of relationship with the surrounding communities. We're all in this together, so I just want to say thank you to all the other agencies that did help us with this. Can't thank the DA's office enough. We have a very good working relationship with them, as well as the coroner's office. And like I said about Dr. Dirkmatt's Mercyhurst team, it's twice now they've been here in less than 18 hours to help us with these cases. So I just want to make sure that those agencies, were not overthinking them. We're very appreciative of all those people that are helping us.
Shortly after Jilly went missing, was it your belief that she was deceased? And how frustrating, if that was the case, how frustrating was that in those months and years until her body was discovered?
I'll say that we were hoping for a better outcome to start the first few months. After a couple months, we all kind of had the realization that we're probably dealing with a similar homicide. So we took steps to work towards that. Obviously, not having her body is extremely frustrating. Kept getting rumors that she's here, she's here, she's here, so we're constantly chasing down leads to either prove or disprove those leads. So it's very frustrating until we can actually find the person, in this particular case, Jilly.
How relieved were you when you were able to file the homicide charges against Nancy, that you were able to at least get him off the streets?
That was a big piece of it. We all felt a great sense of relief, as I know parts of the community did also. They reached out to us several times and said thank you to getting him off, because there was only a matter of time until it happened again. And unfortunately, it did happen again. But unfortunately, that was within that time period where he was still out. So it was a great sense to finally get him off.
The district attorney often says, a case doesn't stop when child charges are filed or
Correct.
anything like that. Is there anything you can share about what you guys are kind of looking at coming up, or like interviews maybe, or whatever?
Yeah, so we always have the same mindset with the Detective Bureau and other detective bureaus, that the real investigation starts again whenever charges are filed. That's when people will start coming out of the woodwork, and they'll actually start bringing more information that they were afraid to bring before, because that person was still out. Again, what you might have might be minute in detail to you, but might be that one puzzle piece that's going to give us the picture that we're looking for. So please, however minute it might be, give us a call, let us know. It might be insignificant to you and complete significant to us.
Do you believe he was almost a predator? I mean, two females in his life, both end up dead, and they both have similar kind of stories.
I think you hit the nail on the head. He was a predator. Anything else? Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.